Welcome back to Road Atlanta, the Petit Le Mans. You're looking at another of the legends. That is Hans Stuck, and driving the BMW, and you can tell that helmet. Look at that, the stars in the helmet. Look at the speed of those shifts, and that's not paddle shift, that's not sequential, that's a patterned gate.
Straight cut gears, as all racing gearboxes are. No time for synchromesh. See his visor open. That's a lot more cool air in. Some drivers don't like that in case it may go on fire, but really you're pretty safe inside a sedan like this. But you can actually hear the whine of the gearbox here. Just listen.
Yeah, he doesn't use the clutch at all either, you see. That is actually, he's just banging it straight through. That's why it's so quick. No clutch. His left leg isn't kind of jumping up in the air with the clutch pedal. This man loves to drive. Music, huh?
That is truly beautiful. And Hans Stuck, not really a better conductor than the bunch, I don't think.
Well, he is so enthusiastic about everything he does inside a race car. I mean, he just loves to drive. He'd do it for free if we didn't pay him.
Well, you know, one of the things, too, that while we've been enjoying watching Hans Stuck here, of course, we've got the emails that are coming in, and there's an interesting development that was officially announced here, and obviously some of our very well-informed fans back at home watching got on the email and are a little bit aware of what's going on. I have an email here from Tom Johnston from Welland, Ontario, Canada. It says, I was wondering if any cars at the Petit Le Mans event are in fact using the upcoming system of 1, 2, or 3 lights on the side of the car to indicate their class position during the race. Keep up the good work. I vote for the final hour to be commercial free, by the way. Thanks, guys. Well, interestingly, Tom, I took a moment a little bit earlier and took a look at that very program as it was introduced here. We spent some time with it. They're testing it here. It's not officially in use, but they're testing it. But right now, this seems like a perfect time. Let's take a look at the feature that I filed just a little bit ago at that new system that's going to be employed to help the fans at the track know where their drivers are in class. And as we said, it is being tested here. A couple of the BMWs and a couple of the Porsches just in the window behind the passenger side, if you will, the passenger side rear window. They have some of the lights there. They're just being tested. It isn't actually a functioning unit. They're just checking it to see if it's receiving it. Want to show you there's some E-Slam speed line information that's coming your way as well. But what we would like to do, we've got about a minute to the top of the hour here. Derek, you have an email as well?
Quick one here from Mike Sullivan in Austin, Texas. He noticed the Audi appear to be using a semi-automatic sequential gearbox like the F1 cars. Do other cars have this, or do they have manual gearboxes? Audi has semi-automatic. The Panos cars have semi-automatic, in other words, paddle shifters. The Cadillac next week will be using semi-automatic, and no other classes like the BMW you're watching here is allowed to use that because it has to be a stock item available on the car, and it's not available on the BMW as I know yet. It also says, he continues on question 2, driver sliding off, running too fast, running too hard. Tell us about some Le Mans type strategies. Well, I will tell you, in 88 and 89, I did the Le Mans 24-hour race for Jaguar. It became the first of the 24-hour sprint races. Le Mans has been a sprint race for many years. These races tend to be not so much sprint races because there's not that many cars competitive at the front of the grid. So here, it's unlike the real Le Mans 24-hour race where you have so many good cars, you have to go fast. Today, they should be taking their time a little bit and not be crashing and bashing as much as we have seen.
By the way, folks, we have now officially, just by a couple seconds past the 5-hour mark, we are officially past the halfway point in the 2001 Audi Petit Le Mans here at Road Atlanta. We so appreciate you joining us, but keep in mind we have an awful lot of racing yet to go as we finish out the American Le Mans season with certainly one of the great endurance races. We'll be right back to it.
Controversy has certainly flowed throughout this season in the GT category, ever since the BMW camp debuted a V8-powered M3. Now the Porsche camp screamed, where is this car? Where is the road-going version? Well, here at Road Atlanta in the paddock area, America, we see it for the very first time. As you can imagine, from BMW and the M brand, it's a beautiful vehicle. All of the bells and whistles that you would expect, plus the very powerful, for the first time, V8 engine. Now, when you look at the spec sheet, we certainly expect this vehicle to perform all of the goodies that you would expect. I'd love to own one, but when I look at the bottom line, instead of seeing a price tag, I see the fact that this car will not be for sale in North America. Now, this for sure will start those Porsche tongues wagging once again.
And if you're in Europe, it's going to cost you a cool 250,000 euros. And you do the math, that's pretty serious money.
And apparently will be available from January 2002 on in very limited numbers.
Here's a good look we had for a moment of Karl Wendlinger as he's driving the car. Now here, this was shot a little bit earlier, that's some of the Porsche think tank. Well, that's Herbert Ampere. To his right is Alvin Springer, who's been involved in the motor development and Porsche for a long time. They are looking this car over, and of course they still harbor the concerns. There are no creature comforts in this car. It's a lot of carbon fiber. It's incredibly powerful, obviously very expensive. It is truly just a street legal version of the race car. But let's not forget, when the Porsche GT1, the first one, came out, that was a stretch of the rules. You take the rules and you stretch them. And of course, wasn't it the Dower 962 that got Hurley Haywood his last win was sort of an interesting read on the rules. It happens.
That's absolutely right. This is beautifully done, this car. Very nicely put together.
This is a replay. I'm sorry, Dirk.
This is Karl Wendlinger. Look at this. In the brake zone, right over the edge of the gravel trap. He has been in all sorts of trouble because it was Karl Wendlinger we saw hit the number 15 Porsche earlier at the bottom of the S's.
Did you see when he was braking, the front end of that car just, I don't know whether that was lockup on the front or whether
you can get away with it with this type of car, though. You know, that's the beauty of this sort of car. You make an error like that, you can get away with it. It's got a bit of ground clearance. You don't go ripping off your spoilers or your bibs. So he just left his braking too late and decided to go across the shingle rather than lock it all up and turn it into a ball.
Bibs and shingles. I like that. You notice 1.5 was the lateral G that he saw in the prototype. The LMP 900s, you're seeing about 2.5. Obviously, you would expect that performance, but for a GT car to be generating that kind of lateral G's, that's some serious performance.
Running 10th overall, as you see the Johansson, Murey, Audi just fly by him, but Karl Wendlinger still on board with him. 10th overall, and he is 1-2 P3 in the GT class.
Now, of course, we're watching, and Wendlinger struggling a little bit there. Dorsey, he seems to be in a bit of trouble.
Well, guys have been down here and camped in this garage area, and you see right there a tie rod, or at least I think you see a tie rod. They've got a special little bracket made up, and they put this tie rod together, and they put it on a mold that they have to get the length exactly right. Now, the theory is, of course, they're going to come in and they're going to try a quick change the tie rod. Obviously, when he had contact, he's bent the front wheel. Also, J.J. Lehto will be getting in that car, and we expect it sometime in the next 4 or 5 laps.
That's a steering arm with a high angularity ball joint at the end, and exactly what Dorsey said.
As he is a paid factory driver, obviously, for the Audi program, but there's a lot of drivers here who are doing it out of pocket, but they're here doing it, and that's what counts. Welcome back to the Audi Petit Le Mans here in Speed Vision's live coverage, flag to flag, for another year. Absolutely great. This is Road Atlanta. Of course, you're on board. Bill Auberlen giving you a bit of a tour in the number 6 prototype technology group, Yokohama BMW, up through turn 5, heading down toward turn 6. Happy to welcome to the, well, we're not really happy to welcome to the booth Rob Dyson, because that means that you're having a problem with the car and you've got the time to swing over and visit with us. Obviously, the car's out. We reported earlier as we believe clutch problems. What happened?
Clutch was, the clutch cluster came a little unglued. We're unclear as to what caused the problem. We're going to pull it apart when we get back to the shop in a couple of days. Take a look and see what happens. It's very unusual that you have any problems with clutches the size that we're using now with the multiple plates. I don't want to get too technical, but it just was a very, very unusual occurrence.
But you're happy with the chassis, aren't you, basically? It's turning out to be pretty good, isn't it?
The chassis is good, but it's a, new car blues. You know, you get the odd little heating problem here, or ventilation problem there, or a little head buffeting more, and that kind of thing. So
let me jump in here. The number 42 BMW is in. Dorsey?
Yeah, you're right. They are in. I'm taking a look at the right front. It's got quite a bit of damage on it. You're right. They're not doing anything yet but the driver change. As J.J. Lehto is going back in, Wendlinger getting out. right front corner. Now, like I said before, we watched them as they set up for a tie rod change. They've got new bolts and they've got new nuts for the thing, but they're not saying for sure that they're going to change it. Looking at the wheel, it looks like it's got a normal amount of negative camber or tire lead, but it just could be look at the rim. If you can see the rim is completely broken on the outer bead, which is amazing that it even held pressure because the wheel is destroyed completely. Now they're putting a new tire on, but they are not going to the tie rod. That surprises me somewhat when you take a look at that wheel, realizing that it took a really good hit to split it open like that. But they're not going to put the tie rod on. They're just going to send him on his way.
Well, I would think, Dorsey, that they might take a moment, look at the tire, and see if there's any unusual wear, if it's towed the wrong way or too much, and the temperatures and the like. And if it seems to be okay that way, they'll see if they can't just head on. J.J. Lehto now behind the wheel, and he's going to head out on the track. Now, interestingly, we want to take a quick moment here and look back. It has not been the best of days for the BMW Motorsports team. They've had some moments here as this race has unfolded in the first 5 hours or so. Here's one, unfortunately.
Yes, there we are.
James getting together with JJ. Obviously, he skated through the gravel, but another moment here as they got involved in one of the Dick Barber cars.
And that's
Wendlinger. The incident.
Yeah, that's what did the damage to that right front wheel.
Yes.
Here's Wendlinger as he just gets it wrong under braking, apparently, for the chicane, just skirts the gravel, able to get back and underway, and, of course, continued on a number of laps before he brought it in to the pit stop that Dorsey just mentioned to you. That contact with the car with James, was there any serious damage to your car?
No, and that was the reason why we pulled the car off the track, because James was downshifting and it didn't go, and we knew that was causing it. So James said, look, this could get us into some real trouble.
So because it looked like a bit of an ambitious move for someone of the experience of James to try and pull off.
He wouldn't have done it.
So he had a gearbox problem.
Right.
That put him in that predicament.
Couldn't slow it down enough.
Yeah, he didn't disconnect. He couldn't get it down, and that's what wrecked his rhythm. You know.
Well, Lehto will tell them whether that BM is going to be handling or not. If Lehto's happy to put up with the car and it's
back behind the wheel, but they continue to chase Frank Biela in the number 2 Audi. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our live coverage of Petit Le Mans. I'm here with Karl Wendlinger. Karl, you had a pretty eventful stint there, a couple contacts. Had a couple of close ones there out there.
Yes, I mean, last stint was a little bit turbulent. We had one black flag and a misunderstanding. I did not have one base car time and a misunderstanding. I didn't come in straight away, so we lost a little bit of time. And then I had one touch with the Porsche GT car. My fault and his fault. He was so slow, I thought he let me by, but he didn't see me probably. So we lost some seconds there as well. Otherwise, the car is okay and everything is fine.
You came from testing, and then we had to fix it up and racing. You can always, when push comes to shove, you got to race the car.
As you watch now, the champion Porsche again slice down the inside one of the BMWs. I know I spoke to Bob Riley earlier this morning, and he told me there was quite a bit of flexing on that new car that they've worked on to just make it a little bit better every time they go work on it.
Yeah, and the flexing was in places that we haven't seen it before, wheel carriers and that kind of thing. And we're working on it. It's one of these things that fortunately the good folks at Goodyear enables to use some testing facilities for them. We were able to fix up a few parts and get it working.
I think what I found interesting from Bob was he said normally when something flexes, it eventually breaks. But he said nothing actually broke on this car. It was just a lot of small things flexing in a small way that had to be taken care of instead of one big thing.
Right. Again, this is what you find when you run the car hard in racing. And we found it out in Mid-Ohio. We found that the car was a little bit squirrely, if you will, but not so much so. And James was the guy. James has got such a great car feel and such a great technical head, and he doped out several areas. That's what we went after.
Racing's like war, though, isn't it? It's needs must. I mean, you can fiddle and diddle around in testing and sorting, but once you're racing, you're at war, and you have to get it right and go for it and drive round the problems and get results.
That's right. And the other thing that it does when you race the car is not only that, but you also it can be destructive testing. But the other thing is that it also shows you the good benefits of the automobile as well. and it enables you just to cut to the chase a lot quicker.
So you're responsible, Dirk, for James Weaver becoming a multiple champion?
I'm responsible for his success.
You are a great man,
in addition to Rob.
All right. Yes, well, of course.
You're his agent
and I have
now,
to say,
as well.
I have to say, Rob, that I know you don't want the problems you dealt with, obviously, in qualifying and having him start so far back, but we didn't have to come on air, and I was out around the track during the first couple of hours, and I have to say, watching James Weaver work traffic is still one of the great joys for any fan to be able to watch. And
well,
it's a real treat.
He is a real artist when it gets behind the wheel. He really knows how to compete.
And you must pay him a lot of money because he's now, what, 15 years in your employment?
He's been 15 years. It's been a great relationship.
Yeah, it has.
Very enduring and extremely successful. Rob, thanks so much for joining us. We'll let you get back and outside where you can enjoy some of the racing.
Great, thanks. Great seeing you guys, and it's great. Speed Vision, you know, Roger's a great friend, and you know, I know his deal's done, but Speed Vision has been great. I saw Alan on his program from Goodwood. In fact, I was trying to get there, but my wife and I decided not to go, so we stayed home, but we're going to get there next year.
We missed you, but I always say to every American listening, if you're going to have a holiday in Europe, take in one of the Goodwood shows.
Absolutely. Thanks.
It's an awesome event indeed. This too an awesome event, and it's going to get even better because the votes are in from 7 to 8 Eastern Time, 1 hour commercial-free racing from the Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta. We'll be right back. With a shout, no question. We take a look at the LMP 675 category. Milka Duno continued to lead that, teamed with Scott Mountwell, obviously, who had some great runs early. Ben Devlin second, then Hurtgen and Brian Willman round out the top 4 in that category. The 4 in there, and in the GT category, this is an interesting development. Number 43, Dirk Müller, continues to lead it, but Hans Stuck is coming up in second to get back on that lead lap. And then with yellows or pit stops, that could involve, get very interesting. J.J. Lehto, Johnny Mollem round out the top 4. We're going to step away for a moment very quickly. When we come back, another special guest has joined us.
5 hours to get this race kind of sorted out and get any kind of rhythm to it.
Yeah, well, I'd heard all about this, and especially at the beginning, there were a lot of yellow flags out there and a lot of pace cars. You know, they're still popping in now and again, so it's going to go quite long. But it's going to be now very important that hopefully you get a break when they do come out.
Now, just down the road in Dallas, Texas, Sam Hornish is leading the IRL race right now, a race that you were going to compete in. What's the plan with that?
Well, it's a bit of a show. I'm sure you would have been saying my name, but anyway, you know.
Some of the emails, get to some of our guests, because for 5.5 hours, I mean, it was harem scarum time. There was so much going on the racetrack, as you watch Boris said.
Look at the eyes. Look at the eyes. He's second in GT, still trying to get that lap back, but the focus, and obviously you watch, this is not any just casual drive. The hand's always pumping on the wheel. I mean, every spot on this track, you're correcting, you're working the car, but you've got to have your head into your game.
And this is one of the PTG run BMWs. Easy for you to say. Let me give you the advantage that the factory cars have. They went and did the European Le Mans Series rounds also. Tom Milner's cars didn't. If you did the European rounds, you could actually substitute one of those results for your worst results at ALMS. Therefore, the advantage at all times was going to be with the factory BMW team that we're on board here with, as opposed to what Tom Milner decided to do and not do the European races.
Here's a look at J.J. Lehto, and here is what they just announced yesterday is the schedule for next year for the American Le Mans Series. Starts at Sebring with the 12-hour race. Great development, a return of sports cars to downtown Miami, and they had a real war in their hands making this happen, and they have. It's absolutely great. Now, the first weekend in May, it doesn't show it on the schedule because it's not part of the ALMS series, is the practice weekend.
Or something, no problem, but the rules state that if you touch the car, then you're out. So even if the officials would want to sort of like bend a little bit with those rules, when you got other teams out there, particularly Celine, he'd have been over there in a heartbeat trying to get that thing turned around. So rules are rules. They made a mistake, really, but as Doug Feehan said, he said if we didn't go out there and move the car would have sat there for the whole race, so we had nothing to lose.
Well, it was a no harm, no foul situation.
Exactly.
You try it, it didn't work. Meanwhile, though, the team car's leading, and I think Dorsey is with Kelly Collins.
Yeah, Kelly Collins, we're taking a look at the team cars leading. The 4 cars are doing good.
to put some cutouts there. It's a tough job, and what Don Panos and the group that now own this track have done since they purchased it has been just amazing. I'm sure that that's an area that they'll be looking at.
Oh, it's a whole bunch better than it was when I used to race here in the Can-Am, for instance, but it's still a very unforgiving circuit. We had an email about that earlier. How unforgiving is Road Atlanta? Well, whoever sent that email in, I'll tell you, Derek will back me up. This is a very, very unforgiving circuit, because once you get on that green stuff, I think it's called grass, you've had it. You're going to be hitting something if you're going any kind of speed.
And of course that glorious red Georgia clay, Derek.
Yes, it is. I'm watching Christoph Tinso, who was really close to the pace car when they got this restart.
Really played out, but also contact, the bump. It looks like he may have got away. That was
That's
very
right.
flush side to side. He could be all right, but certainly surprised the number 75 GT Porsche there.
I would say he surprised him.
But what I was going to say was the V8 grunt, that big V8 in the Panos, it helps immensely in traffic compared to the turbos. Even though in this day and age, it's amazing. Now look at this. The tape guys, see now they're trying to make us look even better here. Look at this. What a look.
Yeah,
he saw the one car go through. He never saw the Panos, did he?
No. That's what's happening, you see. These guys, they see the one car and the peripheral vision isn't there.
Wow, look at
another look.
And Magnussen just chops over the curb on the inside. Look at the BMW, the 42 BMW almost gets involved. They sort themselves out. The Porsche goes grass cutting.
Welcome back to the Audi Petit Le Mans Road Atlanta. Nice to have you all with us here. Just a little while ago, we had our 10th yellow, which has been a total, by the way, of 38 laps in our first 6 hours and 25 minutes. The reason...
His nose in whenever he has the opportunity. He's out there having a ball, but I spoke to them about the low downforce setup that they're running on the champion car, how that would be affected when they got to the nighttime hours and cooler conditions. They think they should still be fast then, and they're also able to get a good read on fuel mileage in comparison with the Yost car when it comes down to a shootout. We've had a lot of cautions, of course, but on green flag running.
Well, thanks for joining us, for being with us. They're going to take you through to the end of this race. Enjoy it.
So Patrick Lamourie, a test driver for the BAR Honda Formula One team and a close friend of Jacques Villeneuve, will stay in. Fredrik Ekblom climbs out of the number 42 GT BMW M3 GTR. Karl Wendlinger, speaking of former Formula One drivers, climbs in.
He's a tall guy. You can see he's having a struggle getting into that cockpit. Look at the damage to that front right.
Calvin has more from the pit.
Well, the series officials actually were very concerned about this front splitter, and the work has been asked to be completed on this car, so they brought him in, and is Karl Wendlinger getting in the car once again. Fredrik Ekblom actually jumping out, so it looks like they're just going to tear this apart, but this will probably have a drastic effect on the handling. They've got a jigsaw actually underneath the front end. They're just ripping it off, but it's really going to unbalance the car, certainly under braking, and when you get to high speed going down the back straightaway, they can certainly create some aerodynamic situations with the car purpose.
And the problem is that pit exit is so blind, and the cars come up there. Where Andy Wallace broke that wheel, his car would be doing about 135, 138 miles an hour, something in that range. So you can't just pull over to driver's left and assume there's no cars there because it's very blind.
In case you're wondering, the pit lane speed limit is 60 kilometers per hour, about 37 miles an hour.